Welcome to the Sim to Sky podcast, the show where we bridge the gap between virtual flying and real-world aviation. I'm Dustin Nuttall, a future student pilot, flight sim enthusiast, and all-around GA nerd. If you missed episode 0, go check it out. It's just a trailer, but it explains a lot for what this podcast is about. But for now, buckle up, because today's episode is a deep dive into how flight simulators are prepping me for the real-world training and where they might be setting me up for bad habits. We're also going to talk about some absolute gems in Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, of course. Specifically, how I fell in love with the Cessna 195 in the sim, and now I'm on a real-life quest to own one. Plus, I'll give an update on my not so much flights training at the moment still in Great Falls, Montana, where I'm learning, will be learning in a trusty Piper Cherokee, which, spoiler alert, flies nothing like the Cessna 195. And because this is a monthly show, we're going to go on a long journey today. So grab your favorite aviation beverage. Mine's black coffee because I'm not fancy. And let's get into it. Alright, let's start with the positives, because honestly, flight simulators today are insanely realistic. Especially with all the mods you can add into it on top of it, makes things even more realistic. Now, I've been using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024. I do have X-Plane 11. I just couldn't get over the graphics, but there's a huge bridging gap between those two, and we'll get into that some other time. I really don't have a decent startup or anything. I just use an Xbox controller, which, isn't teaching me a whole lot with the feeling, which later on when I get enough money, I want to buy a honeycomb, which is supposed to be really, really good. And a whole board where you can actually press the buttons on. Yeah, the whole Cessna setup, everything. So I'm saving up my money to get the proper stuff that I really, really want. But with that, it's actually translating into real-world flying for me. Procedures and checklists, so important. Funny story here. So, I'm with this group for live events and stuff like that, so we do flying events. I have a flying event every Sunday where we do cross-country flights, and we did one in Montana here, because I haven't been on for a while, and I wanted to create one, and so we went from Great Falls, Montana, to Sealy Lake, Polson, and then up to Whitefish to land. Now, I was using a plane that I usually don't use. I normally use Cessnas all the time. But the Cessnas that I use usually don't have landing gear that retracts. And I had the 182 RG2, which it retracts. And so we got to Sealy Lake, and I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So we touched down, and I was coming in for the landing. I'm like, yeah, boys, look at this nice landing coming. I was so excited. I came down. I hit very softly, slid across the grass. At this time, I still didn't realize about my landing gear. And then finally, when I came to the stop, one of them that was landing behind me just was laughing. I didn't know why. And then all of a sudden, I leaned left. I'm like, why am I leaning left? I looked out, so I got to the exterior view, and lo and behold, I forgot my landing gear. It was retracted still. So the whole time I was so excited about how good and soft that landing was, just to find out I didn't even land on my wheels, and I was belly first. So that is something that is very important. Even in real life, that will actually happen if you don't follow your procedures and checklists. And this time I forgot to do it because I was just involved with, hey, I'm in a Cessna, I'm fine, and I know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? Even the biggest pros will still do their procedures and checklists, and you still get to do your checklists even at that. So In the sim, I am drilling the startup procedures and the flows and emergency checklists and, where they are becoming muscle memory. So that's one of the things that is a massive plus about Flight Sim is that these things you can actually use to build muscle memory. So when you get into the plane, you don't feel completely lost. And you know where the fuel cutoff is and how to prime the engine and the altimeter and what it all means, everything. But here's one catch. Here is one catch, though, that we all have to remember coming from a flight sim to real life. Real planes don't have a reset button. So we'll get more on that later. On top of that, we have radio work and ATC familiarity. So that is another thing. I do have VATSIM, but I don't use it much because for some reason it won't connect. I don't know what's going on with that, but I do not use the in-game ATC. I can't stand it. So I use the Beyond ATC so I can use my mic to speak with it, which is helping me get comfortable when I hear something, I have to respond. Because at first I would hear it and I would hear it and I would hear it and still be flying and not paying attention. So that's another thing of muscle memory too. It helps when you have the headphones set on to where you're getting used to hearing someone there in your ears and you have to pay attention and you have to listen. And then you can also ask, hey, can you repeat this? You start learning things and it starts building muscle memory. So that's another huge plus to me, in my opinion. And, the first real radio call isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than never doing it at all. Because you're not going to freeze up. That's how I'm looking at it. And ATC is way more patient on the game than it is in a real busy tower in the real world. So remember that. Also, basic stick and rudder feeling. So I don't really know the basic feel. So if you're flying the Cessna 172 in Microsoft Flight Sim, it does give you a rough sense of pitch and power settings, especially when you have different mods, because I have some mods for real life turbulence and other things like that, and a realistic flying dynamic, so it kind of helps. Obviously, if you go to X-Plane has a really, really good dynamic flight system, whereas Microsoft Flight Sim doesn't. So, and if I remember right, X-Plane is actually FDA approved. So now none of these really get used as in how much hours you're actually flying, but it does help to build a muscle memory for everything. So we got to keep that in mind. But the sim doesn't give you the seat of the pants feel, unless you are rich enough to get everything set up. But at that rate, if you're going to spend that much money on a whole setup for a flight sim, you may as well just buy the real thing. That's my opinion. Now, the bad. This is where it gets dangerous if you rely too much on a flying sim before you get into a real airplane. Because, yes, they will teach you some really bad habits if you're not careful, and one of them is being overconfident in emergencies. In the sim, if you botch a landing, like I did, you can't just hit the go around and try again. In real life, you don't get infinite do-overs. And the CFI will remind you of that you cannot pause reality. And there's no real feel for the aircraft in the sim. The sim doesn't teach you how a real plane talks to you. The sounds, the vibrations, the subtle feedback. You got to realize that real life is not the same as a simulator. A simulator is not the same as real life. So we have to remember that. And button versus reality. Here's another one. In Microsoft Flight Sim, you can slew your plane into a perfect alignment with the runway. In real life, you have to earn that center line. The wind? Oh man, that doesn't behave the same way as it does in the sim. Even with my mod of real turbulence, it does not behave the same way. Certain planes, you can get the same kind of feel here and there, but here in Great Falls International, we have higher wind speeds the majority of the year than Chicago does all year. So it's something I'm going to be learning here. Now, yes, I am learning these things soon because I want to be able to go in and be able to impress my CFI and everything and be able to go in and be like, yes, I know what I'm doing in a sense. Like, I'll have more confidence when I get into that plane and I won't freeze. Because that's one of the things you don't want to do is get in a plane and then you freeze because you don't know what you're going to do. I want a little bit of muscle memory, a little bit of understanding what I'm doing in each kind of plane. So, there's that. Okay, so let's switch gears to something more fun. My love affair with the Cessna 195. If you haven't flown this bird in Microsoft Flight Sim or an X-Plane, you're really missing out. It's a 1950s era round engine tail dragger beauty, and flying it in the sim made me need to fly one in real life. So why the Cessna 195? Well, it's got character. No boring nose wheel here. It's all about the tail wheel challenge, which, by the way, to get a tail dragger, you need another certification from my understanding. So after I get my certificate or my pilot's license, I had to get another certificate for that. The radial engine sound in Microsoft Flight Simulator is a chef's kiss. Like, Coronado does a fantastic job with this plane. It has the right balance for the sound, and it's beautiful. And when I've watched countless videos of YouTube videos, they were very, very closely identical. So, Coronado, thank you for this beautiful, wonderful gift. And it's also a rare bird. Only about 1,000 were ever made, so finding one for sale is like a treasure hunt. I mean, I found a few that's for sale, but they're high-priced, unfortunately, and I don't have that kind of money at the moment. But one day I will, but I'm still searching. I'm hoping actually to find one that isn't able to run, that is kind of bare bones, that I can build up, because that would be an awesome project, honestly. So, I've been searching all over the internet. I found a lot of things, so scouring barnstormers and Trade A plane and every backcountry hangar rumor for a decent 195. But here's the thing, I don't want a decent one. I don't want to pay those high prices. I want to build from the ground up. So, even if I just get the without the engine and everything, I can deal with that. So, yeah. Let's just say that for the prices, I would probably have to sell a kidney. But hey, aviation dreams require sacrifice, right? And while I'm at it, I've also fallen hard for a few other classics. So the Cessna 185F Skywagon, that is one of my favorite bush planes. I've definitely been practicing a lot with that and STOL landings in the sim. And I am not dreaming of Alaska. I'm actually dreaming of Idaho, backcountry. I actually enjoy that more than the Alaska front. So, and then also I watched this lady on YouTube, and I can't remember her name, and I apologize. But she has a restored and newly painted Cessna 140A. Oh my. It sounds beautiful. It looks beautiful. It is a dream. It's almost tied up there with me for the 195 at this moment. But it's simple, it's cheapish, and pure stick and rudder fun. So if I'm going to go for something, that's probably something I might start with. It is beautiful. And then also, something that's a higher price, of course, is the Beechcraft Bonanza V35. It is called the Dr. Killer. More like the Dream Killer when you see maintenance costs. But the V-tail is iconic. and it's something that I've truly kind of fallen in love with on the game. So I don't know. People said that it doesn't feel the same way in real life. It's one of the planes that flies well on the game, but in real life is a nightmare sometimes. So I don't know how real that is. I haven't spoken to someone who actually flies it yet, at least not face to face. So I've just spoken to people over the net. So I don't know. Now, back to reality. Because as much as I daydream about vintage tail draggers, my actual training has not occurred yet. But it's supposed to be in the Piper Cherokee at Great Falls Jet Center. So, but why is the Cherokee? It's what my flight school has. And honestly, it's a great trainer. It's stable and predictable and way easier to land than a tail dragger, of course. But going from sim Cessnas to real Cherokee will be an adjustment. So I actually found a Cherokee for only like $9, so it doesn't look the greatest on Microsoft Flight Sim, but I can definitely tell it flies pretty rough. It's very similar to the V35 though, in the feeling in a certain sense. So I got the Comanche downloaded, and now that one's a different feel. That one definitely has a more of a feeling, and I've read some reviews about that it feels closer to the counterparts of a Cherokee. So I'm practicing on that one right now to learn everything, so when I get into a Cherokee, I can understand the startups and everything, and how it's supposed to feel. But obviously, the sighting the picture is going to be a lot different, especially since I'm so used to Cessnas. Now, I'm really not close yet. I was going to start here last month, but I kind of got into myself a little bit of a hardship, so I'm going to have to wait just a little bit here. But yes, I will be taking my exam soon, and then I will be going for, I think, 6 months, they said, of training, which will cost about 18 grand. But they said if I understand and study and learn things prior, it'll be cheaper and I won't have to have all those hours. So that is, a good thing. But the one thing that I really need to learn is that the crosswind practice. Montana wind is no joke. I've learned that crabbing in a sim is nothing like the real thing. And mountain flying considerations, Great Falls isn't just the Rockies, but density altitude is still a thing. The sim doesn't teach you how a sluggish plane feels on a hot day. I mean, in a sense it does. I've noticed that where I struggled one day to even get it up. But it still doesn't teach you a whole lot. It teaches you a little bit, enough to understand, but we really need to understand that flight sims is not perfect, but it's a great learning tool. All right, so now it's time for some listener questions, or at least questions I wish I was getting. Send me real ones, please. Let's pretend these came in from fellow sim pilots and students. So we are going to go through and answer some questions. Do you think Microsoft Flight Simulator is good enough for primary training prep? Great question. Short answer is yes, but with caveats. It's fantastic for procedures, navigation, and basic stick skills, but it's no substitute for real stick time. I would use it like a study aid, not a replacement. Question 2. What's your favorite freeware mod for Microsoft Flight Simulator that helps with training? Ooh. Man. I would say the working title Garmin mods are a must for glass cockpit practice, and if you're learning VOR navigation, the Just Flight Arrow 3 is worth every penny. Question 3. Any tips for transitioning from sim to real flying? Um, I would say fly with a CFI early. Don't let sim habits cement. Focus on the feel. Real flying is all about senses, not just visuals. And embrace being bad at first. Real landings are way harder than sim landings. Well, I guess that's it for the month's episode. Next time, we'll dive deep into the cost of learning to fly, budgeting for lessons, gear, and that dream plane. Because let's be real, aviation isn't cheap. And if you enjoyed this, please leave a review, tell a fellow aviation nerd, or hit me up on social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and if you've got a line on a Cessna 195 for sale, please let me know. My wallet is ready to suffer even more than it's already doing. Until next time, keep the blue side up, and I'll see you in the skies.